This story is from 4,000 years ago in a town of the Bani Israel, where a very honest and wise dervish lived. Since childhood, he had only one friend, who was mute from birth and crippled in one leg. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. One day, the dervish felt a strong desire to visit his friend. The next day, he set out on foot toward his friend's village. The village was far away, with many smaller villages in between. The dervish was walking, lost in his own thoughts. Suddenly, he met a stranger on the road. The man started walking with the dervish. The dervish thought, "This is great. Having company will make the journey go faster." As they walked, the dervish asked the man's name. The man said his name was Kabitz. The dervish found the name a bit strange. What kind of name is that, he wondered, but he didn't feel the need to ask any more questions. The two of them walked on together. When they reached a village, the stranger said to the dervish, "You go on ahead. I have to deliver a message to someone in this village. I'll catch up with you shortly." The dervish said, "All right," and went ahead. Just then, news spread through the village that a bull had killed a man. Shortly after the man's death, the stranger rejoined the dervish. They continued walking and reached the outskirts of another village. A small caravan had set up there, and the accommodations looked quite nice. The dervish's friend's village was still far away, and evening was approaching. The dervish said to the stranger, "It's getting late. I'm very tired and hungry from walking all day. Let's eat and rest here. We can start fresh in the morning." The stranger replied, "Okay, I have to give something important to someone in this village. You go ahead and eat and rest. I'll eat later." With that, he left. A short while after he left, smoke was seen rising from the village, and soon the entire village was engulfed in flames. The dervish was astonished, thinking that wherever this man went, some kind of disaster followed. Something is definitely wrong here, he thought, but he didn't say anything to the stranger about it that night. The next morning, they both set off again towards their destination. After a short distance, they came to another village. The stranger again said to the dervish, "You go on ahead. I have some urgent business in this village too. I'll meet you after I'm done." As the stranger started to leave, this time the dervish didn't walk on. He stood there and watched to see where the stranger was going and what he was doing. Just then, he heard people screaming that a bull had gored a man and he had died. At that very moment, the stranger rejoined the dervish. The dervish couldn't hold back any longer and asked the man, "Wherever you go, some kind of calamity occurs. Can you please tell me why this happens?" He replied, "Dervish, I thought you were a very wise man, which is why I was walking with you. The company of the wise is always good, but you still haven't figured out who I am." The dervish said, "I think I have, but I still have some doubts. It would be easier for me if you told me about yourself." The stranger replied, "I am the angel of death, and by God's command, I take the souls of those whose time has come." The dervish had suspected it all along, but hearing it from the angel of death himself, he became frightened. Still, he gathered his courage and asked, "If you are truly the angel of death, then tell me, who is next to die?" The angel of death said, "The next to die is your friend, the one you are going to see, and you yourself will be the cause of his death." Hearing this, the dervish was terrified and fell into deep thought. If this really was the angel of death, then his words would come true, and he would be the cause of his dearest childhood friend's death. He decided it would be better not to meet his friend at all. At least then, he wouldn't be the cause of his death. The angel of death said, "I know what you're thinking, but not meeting your friend will not change his fate. Your friend's death is certain, and it will happen within the next few moments." The dervish was stunned to hear the angel's words. He even knew his thoughts, which was impossible for an ordinary human. Now the dervish was convinced that this truly was the angel of death. So to avoid being the cause of his friend's death, he immediately started to head back to his own village. But as soon as he turned, he saw his friend hurrying towards him, looking very happy to see him. From the way his friend was moving, it seemed he had been following him for a long time. But being mute and crippled since childhood, he could neither catch up to the dervish nor call out to him. The moment he reached the dervish, he suddenly died. The dervish looked at the angel of death in shock, as if to ask, "What just happened?" The angel of death understood his unspoken question and said, "Your friend was following you from the last village, but because he was crippled and mute, he couldn't reach you. He used all his strength to try to catch up, but in his old age, he didn't have the stamina of his youth. The effort caused a heart attack and he died. Because he pushed himself beyond his limits to meet you, you became the cause of his death." The dervish now fully believed that this was the angel of death and his job was to take souls. Being a wise man, the dervish also knew that no one has control over death. Every living being must die one day. With this thought, he composed himself. But suddenly, the dervish felt a desire to know about his own death. He asked the angel of death, "If my friend was destined to die, why were you walking with me from the very beginning?" The angel of death replied, "I walk with everyone, all the time, but people don't recognize me because they're too preoccupied with their own problems to notice or understand any other person, thing, or event." The dervish asked, "Can you tell me when and how I will die?" The angel of death said, "Although it is not for an ordinary mortal to know this, because anyone who learns of their death is filled with sorrow, but you seem to be a wise man, and the ease with which you accepted your friend's death suggests you will not be saddened to learn of your own. So, listen. Your death will be exactly 6 months from today, on this very day, by hanging in another country."
And the most surprising thing will be that you will accept your hanging with a smile. With that, the angel of death disappeared as he no longer had a reason to be with the dervish. The dervish performed his friend's last rites and returned to his village. But friends, no matter how wise a person may be, they will surely worry after learning about their own death and will do something to try and escape it. The dervish did the same. Being a wise man, he was known even to the caliph of his country. The dervish thought that the caliph surely had many wise advisors who could find a solution to his problem. With this in mind, the dervish went to the royal court and told the caliph his entire story. The caliph shared the story with his advisors and sought their counsel. After much deliberation, they concluded that if the dervish's story was true, his death would indeed occur in 6 months. However, it would only happen if he went to another country. If he didn't go, he wouldn't die. The caliph liked this advice. He arranged for the dervish to stay in the palace and no one was allowed to see him without the caliph's permission. However, the dervish was free to come and go as he pleased, so he wouldn't feel like a prisoner. But out of fear, the dervish never went anywhere. Time passed and the day of the dervish's death drew near. On that fateful day, the dervish went to bed early out of fear, hoping the night would pass quickly, a new day would come and death would be averted. But friends, the dervish was a sleepwalker, a condition he himself was unaware of, so there was no question of him informing the caliph or any physician about it. The dervish was very anxious about his death, and sleepwalking often occurs when one doesn't sleep soundly. That night, the dervish began to sleepwalk. He got up, left the palace and went to the horse stables. As a special guest of the caliph, no guard stopped or questioned him. In the stables, he mounted the fastest horse and, still asleep, crossed the border of his country into the neighboring kingdom. Not only that, but he also reached the palace of the neighboring caliph. The guards there didn't stop or question him either, as it was the last watch of the night and everyone was asleep. The dervish went straight to the treasury room and lay down to sleep. In the morning, the treasury guards found the dervish sleeping in the treasury. This infuriated the caliph, who ordered the dervish's arrest. When the dervish was brought before the court, the caliph in a fit of rage sentenced him to death by hanging, declaring, "If you had succeeded in your theft, the people of our small kingdom would have starved to death. Therefore, instead of cutting off your hands, you are sentenced to hanging so that in the future anyone would think 1,000 times before attempting such an act." The dervish trembled upon hearing the death sentence. Still gathering some courage, he said to the caliph, "Your Majesty, I do not know how I reached your palace. I also do not know how I ended up in your treasury. I am not a thief. Why didn't any guard stop me? But I do know this much. Today was my destined day to die, and it is happening now." The Caliph found this statement rather strange. He asked, "How did you know today was your day to die? What are you trying to say?" The dervish recounted the entire story of the past 6 months and said, "Your Highness, neither I nor any common man would have the audacity to commit theft in the Caliph's court and in the Caliph's presence." The Caliph saw some truth in the dervish's words, but he thought that perhaps the dervish was making excuses about the angel of death and the prophecy of his own death to save his life. The Caliph said, "If what you say is true, and today is your day of death as the angel of death foretold, then I will not be the cause of your death. But if it is a lie, then today will certainly be your last day." He immediately sent soldiers with a letter to the Caliph of the neighboring country, seeking to verify the dervish's story. By the evening, the soldiers returned and reported that everything the dervish had said was completely true. The neighboring Caliph had made full arrangements for the dervish's stay in his palace. The dervish had been his guest for the past 6 months. The Caliph had last seen the dervish in his chambers the previous day, and he had no idea how the dervish had reached this country. Therefore, the Caliph of this country should not execute the dervish. Now the Caliph faced a new problem. He had sentenced the dervish to death without any investigation. If the dervish was not hanged, the Caliph's word would be dishonored. And if the sentence was carried out, an innocent man would die. The Caliph sought advice from his advisors on this matter. The advisor said, "Your Highness, hang the dervish with a thread of raw cotton. This way, the honor of your decree will be upheld, and the raw cotton thread will not hang the dervish. His life will be spared." The Caliph liked this advice. He ordered a noose of raw cotton thread to be made for the dervish. Preparations for the hanging began. Everyone watched happily, thinking that neither would the dervish die, nor would the Caliph's promise be broken. The dervish was also confident that a raw cotton thread could not kill him, so he willingly walked to the gallows with a smile, just as the angel of death had said he would. But as soon as the dervish was hanged, the raw cotton thread snapped. But before it broke, it had done its job. The dervish's windpipe had been slit by the thread. The dervish fell to the ground writhing. With every breath, a fountain of blood spurted from his throat. In a few moments, the dervish's body lay completely still. Everyone was amazed at how such a weak thread could be the cause of someone's death. But it had happened. Fate had played its part. What is meant to be, will be. Friends, the lesson from this story is that no matter how cautious we are, no matter how hard we try, we can never erase what is written in our destiny. Every event and its entire sequence is predetermined. We cannot alter it even slightly. This is why God has not given us the power to know the future so that we can live our lives to the fullest. This was also true for the dervish. If he had not asked the angel of death about his own death, he could have lived a better life for those 6 months instead of living in fear in the Caliph's palace. Only one thing has the power to change destiny, and that is prayer. It is said that if a prayer is made with sincerity and a true heart, God can even change fate. Therefore, we should always pray to God for good fortune and a good future. This story is very old, and we have translated it into our own language. This story is from a time when people could see the angel of death. How much truth is there in this story? Only God knows. Please let us know your valuable opinions about the story in the comment box. If you liked the story, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it. We will see you in another new and amazing video. Until then, goodbye.